Montgomery County Public Schools, which are now back in session for in-person learning, but they're still requiring students to wear a mask while on school grounds and buses. Students who prefer not to attend in person have the opportunity to attend a virtual academy if they are admitted to such. Mark, since most students are too young to be vaccinated at this stage, I think we're only down to about 14-year-olds who are eligible for being vaccinated. MCPS is requiring unvaccinated students to quarantine if they come into contact with a person who has COVID symptoms, a very nebulous standard.
Right.
And that is being criticized and giving some pushback by parents who find this unmanageable.
And I think you put your finger on the key point is the standard is a little, is not little, it's very vague as to what it is. It probably would be far clearer if it was, the standard was a member of the household or something like that. It's tough too, because remember what we know about kids of that age, they're likely to be asymptomatic if they get COVID, and they're also not likely to get COVID. So there's a reason why they're not being vaccinated, because their prospects of being a spreader are fairly low.
Well, I guess the administration of this is, I feel for the school system, because trying to keep everyone safe at the same time, right, trying to educate has obviously been a big concern. And so I guess that gets to the fundamental question, Mike, and every jurisdiction approaches this a little differently, but whether or not mask mandates are effective in preventing the spread of COVID-19 to students.
I think from what I've seen, obviously I'm not an expert, but from what I've seen, that yes, it does reduce the spread. Now it continues to be a political discussion. I know there's an article in the Post earlier this week where talked about it. What a school now, the Alexandria decisions that to have a mask mandate that went through unanimously, and contrasted that to the township in Pennsylvania where to not have a mask mandate went through unanimously. And so we have these extremes. I think that you are seeing situations where a mask mandate does slow down the spread. Where there's a school system in Texas where they had 2 teachers dead in the first 4 days because there was no mask mandate. That's not dispositive, but you're seeing, but clearly they got it from somebody. And so the challenge becomes how do you address that? And I think in this community, people are more comfortable with the mask mandate. I think kids and students at this point are comfortable, are fine wearing it. You're always going to find some that don't want to, but most kids I've spoken to are like, it is what it is right now. And so they seem to be flexible and have adapted for the most part.
Well, but we're seeing our sports programs, particularly football, where students are not wearing masks while they're exercising, and they're breathing heavily on one another when they're in a scrum. It seems that on one hand we're advocating the use of masks. On the other hand, we recognize the limitation of.
I don't really recognize the limitation. I think people are aspirational and hopeful that we can go back to the normalcy that we once had, and so we're going to try to do this over here and recognize we can't do it other places because we hope for the best. Honestly, I think people want to get back to normalcy. We're struggling with it. And yet we're not there yet. And so we continue to kind of walk this bizarre contrast. One of the craziest things was watching college football last weekend, and you got 85,000 people in stands. We're all going to pretend there's not an issue. And, it's just.
Well, Mike, I'll take exception with that. They're not pretending that there's not an issue. They're addressing it differently. They're willing to take a risk. It's not that they
they're willing to expose people to they're willing to expose others. They're willing to make sure others bear that risk as well. And I think that's the part I struggle with.
Look, I know I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I read the statistics, and it looks to me that the mortality rate from COVID-19 is about the same as the seasonal flu.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Those numbers don't bear that out at all, Casey.
What are the numbers then? Are they 3 times, 4 times higher?
I think they're
In terms of transmission and terms of fatality?
the mortality and fatality is significantly higher. I have to go back and look now, but it was never even close to the seasonal flu.
Well,
It's
I'll research that. Because
do that. We'll bring that back.
I do think it's more severe. I mean, one of the challenges we have is when we overlay a variety of other factors, such as being vaccinated, and
Right.
We adjust by age and take out high-risk populations. You end up getting kind of a disease that is sort of less destructive than, say, it was in a place like New York in the very early days, when we really didn't have the tools and where the healthcare system was effectively overwhelmed. And that's, I think, been one of those challenges, is this fact that it's kind of hard to isolate the specific circumstance at a particular point in time to make an evaluation.
Well, and I think the point that you asked at the last question, Casey, is are we gonna have to live with this? And I think the answer is yes. And I think with each passing week, day, month, year, we're getting better at it. And so to your point, Mark, we're going to have better medications. We're going to have vaccines. We know how to treat it better when it appears. We know what we're looking for. And so all of those things are going to come in, and ultimately we'll be at a point, and I don't know when ultimately is that 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, where it will be a part of what our normal life, and we'll have to figure out, and we'll have figured out a way to address it and manage it.
Yeah,
I wanted to
the flu, yeah.
comment on the management of it. I'm really surprised and disappointed that we are almost 2 years into this process, and the federal government hasn't released a process for how to treat COVID-19 patients. What are the appropriate drugs and medicines that should be used in the treatment of COVID-19? We had the intermetricin issue come up last week. I'm just surprised that we don't have a treatment system already in place after almost 2 years of dealing with this thing.
I think it shows the evolution of this and the evolution of biology. And so each time we think we have a handle on it, you see a variation, you get a mutant, and so we're on to a different strain. But I think conceptually people are getting better at it. I think individual hospitals are getting better at it. I think the health system's getting at it and learning how to address it. And we'll get better. We'll continue to improve.
All right, we'll get your booster shots. And when we come back from this short break, we're going to talk about remembering the 9/11 attack on its 20th anniversary. Stay tuned.